So, you're thinking of moving to Austin, Texas, or you're just rabbit holing random videos about the pros and cons of what it's like to live in certain cities and certain states. I'll be talking about the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, the ugly. So if that's the information you're after, stay tuned. Hey guys and gals, this is Frank De Avando, or Francis, if you will, or if you won't. Welcome to our channel, Living in Austin, Texas. If this is your first time to the channel and you'd like to learn what it's like to live, eat, sleep, play in Austin, consider subscribing. We're getting calls, texts, emails every day from people moving and relocating here, and we absolutely love it. So, if you're moving from anywhere in the country to anywhere in Austin, shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call, days, nights, weekends, whenever, we'd love to help you. Without further ado, let's jump right into those pros and cons. So I'm gonna start with a con, and perhaps the biggest con in my opinion, and that is the heat. I am someone, subjectively speaking, who hates the heat. If it's above 75, 80 degrees and there's the slightest hint of humidity, which is quite common here, I'll just get soaked everywhere. It's disgusting. And the summers here, you know, 100-degree weather is perfectly normal. We'll get stretches starting as early as May sometimes into June, but then July and August are the killers, where we reach 103, 105, sometimes 110. We don't quite reach the Phoenix numbers like in Arizona when it gets into 115s nearing 120, but here we have much denser air. It feels kind of like an oven. You know, I walk my dog twice a day, and when it's summertime, you know, I have to take him out when it's dark or early in the morning because the asphalt here, the pavement here, I'm afraid of it burning his paws. And selfishly speaking, I can only wear a tank top just because anything else that I wear just becomes drenched and I feel so gross and uncomfortable. Whenever I'm walking him, I make sure I look at my app first. Where is the wind coming from today? If it's south winds, I'm screwed. If it's north winds, I at least know it's gonna be more of a crisp, dry air. And if it's hot enough, you know, you can look into the distance and see this mirage, like in the movie Holes, where you're just like, great, you know, this is what it's gonna be like today. You know, I lived in LA for a year, and personally, give me 95 degrees in LA instead of 85 in Austin. Fortunately, we're not Houston. Houston often has days in 90% humidity where you just step outside and you're sticky, your sunglasses fog up. Combine that with that Texas sunlight, it feels like your skin is just sizzling. I become irritable, I become upset. My ideal climate is 55 to 75. Why do I live here? It's my home. I've created a life here and I'm happy here. But if heat isn't your thing, beware. In some ways though, the heat can be a pro, because if you're someone who's moving from Montana, if you're someone who's moving from Washington, one of these states, New York, where it snows all the time, you're shoveling, you're in luck. In a lot of states, people look forward to summertime. Get outside, go to the pool, do all these things. But here, speaking on behalf of myself and a lot of people I know, summertime is when you stay inside, you crank up your AC, you skyrocket your bill because it's too hot to enjoy anything. Even the pool water gets lukewarm. But it's not hot all the time. And the good thing is that our winters are beautiful. So you'll find people come here in the winters to escape their extreme winter and enjoy the 40s here or the 30s here. It doesn't get much worse than 30s here. You have some 20-degree days very rarely, but usually you'll find it at the lowest, it's in the high 20s. But the thing is, since the air here is humid, it feels colder. It's not, same with the heat, you know, it's not a dry heat where you can, okay, I can deal with this. When it's cold, it's cold, and when it's windy, you really feel it. If you like snow, you're out of luck. I would say in the past 20 years, it has snowed all of perhaps 3 or 4 times. Just recently, actually, in beginning of January 2021, it was a snow day all of a sudden, and it was not just what Texans call snow, which really usually just means sleet or icy roads, but actual snow. Social media was freaking out. There were kids playing all over in their yards. And my neighbors at the time, they moved here from New York to escape that hustle and bustle Brooklyn lifestyle. And, you know, I go outside with my dog because he's never experienced snow. And mind you, he's nearing 6 years old. He's never experienced snow. That's what it's like to live here. But I take him out to enjoy the snow, right? All these kids are playing, they're building snowmen, they're making snow angels. And then I see my New York neighbors, just hands in pockets, like, yeah, it's snowing. So yeah, I mean, in Austin, you're gonna have mostly warm weather. I'd say maybe a third or a fourth of the year you're gonna feel cold, but the summertime is really brutal. So yeah, you know, if you're moving here from a cold weather state and you're ready for some heat, you're coming to the right place. But be warned, you know, it gets very hot. I'd say the no-no months for me are May through August. Decent months for me, September through November, and then you finally start seeing it actually feel cool in December through maybe February. And then it goes right back into spring, and spring isn't actually spring, it's just a lighter version of summer. So we get ready for it to be back in the 80s, sometimes 90s, as early as March or April. So another pro here is the music scene. Austinites pride themselves in being the live music capital of the world. Now, Nashville, Tennessee, they may beg to differ, but we're home to ACL, South by Southwest, Marley Fest, or, you know, I think the technical term for that is the Austin Reggae Festival, but we just call it Marley Fest. You know, artists and bands from all over the world, the biggest names, they come here, and so do a lot of people wanting to see them from all over the country. But a con within this pro is traffic. With people coming from all over the world, all over the country, to see their favorite people, it becomes a mess. If you're living anywhere near the metro area, forget about getting to work on time, going places without some kind of headache and backup in traffic. I've been a few times in the past to these festivals, and they're a lot of fun. It's one of those things for me where I went just to be able to say I went, so that, you know, a story to tell. But a lot of my friends, they live for it. They look forward to it every year. And so if that's your thing, you're in luck. On a personal note though, once or twice was enough for me. I got the gist of it, but I'm personally into oldies. I'm into classics. My favorite music is anywhere from the late 50s to the mid 90s. My sweet spot's probably the 70s. And so all of my favorite artists and bands are either very old or they're dead. You know, personally speaking, I'd rather not go and see some artist I'm vaguely familiar with. I might have a song by them in my library and be squished shoulder to shoulder in a sea of smelly people. Not my thing, personally, but it can be a fun time for your friends and even your family in some spots, but you will smell some things, you will see some things going on, and so it is a certain demographic, if you will. I myself would much rather light a fire, have my dog next to me, connect to my speaker, and play my tunes. I love my Bee Gees, I love my MJ, Marvin Gaye, Genesis, Neil Diamond, The Carpenters, Stevie Wonder, Motown, Queen, Frank Sinatra, Chicago. See, that's more my flavor, and most of them are dead, and those who are alive, you know, they walk with a cane or they don't move around much, but I will say I've been fortunate to see a number of them who are alive, but you don't really see them at the festivals like that. You see the bigger names, the more prominent names in the industry. All right, moving on to another con, and I'll relate it a bit to what I just spoke about with the music festivals, is traffic. And on that note, I-35. I-35 is a cliche. It's the artery for travel. If you're going up to Dallas, to Norman, really anywhere going north or south, I'm heading down to San Antonio, to San Marcos. Avoid at all costs. But the catch is, you really can't avoid it, because if you're trying to get somewhere, you're stuck with I-35. It is always under construction. There are always these gigantic 18-wheelers when you're driving, and in one road trip, you might have maybe once an hour where you get boxed in between these gigantic trucks and you think, you know what, okay, this might be the day that I die. They narrow the shoulders, it slows down, it's a headache. And me, too much information, I got a tiny bladder. I have to pee all the time on road trips. So I know if I'm taking I-35, I do not bring a drink. I stay in the right lane. I'm ready to exit because I know it's gonna get backed up at some point. And on that note, Austin's traffic is getting worse. It's a great thing that Austin's growing and it's becoming a hot destination for people of all kinds. But, you know, at this rate, in maybe 20 years, it'll be like a San Francisco, like an LA. Obviously not comparing the lifestyles or, you know, the Hollywood aspect to it, but in terms of just a dense population, you're starting to see the signs of that coming in. First and foremost, Austin was a college town. 20 years ago, things were drastically different. Being a college town back in the day, it wasn't really designed for substantial growth. For example, Houston, 3.5 hours away, it's a humongous city, and they planned for that. It was in the blueprint over the years to the infrastructure, the freeways, the loops, a big web of driving. And so as Houston grew on schedule, it became more fluid. There's still a lot of traffic, yes, but it's the thing with Austin is it's playing catch up. It's growing too fast, so there's just always construction. Thankfully, toll roads are being built, there's an expressway, there's public transportation, and we're catching up, but it's this never-ending game of catch up. And Austin's growing north, and so if you want to escape all of that, you go more north, the suburbs. You've got Cedar Park, Round Rock, Pflugerville, Leander. So just because Austin isn't Dallas, it isn't Houston, or if you're used to a big city where you're coming from and you think you're coming to a nice, small, quaint place without the mess and the headache of it, I'm telling you now, Austin, as early as 3:30, 4 o'clock, freeway starts getting backed up. You know, I mentioned I lived in LA for a year, and before I moved there, this was 2017, you know, it wasn't as bad. I stayed there for about a year, you know, it was my spread my wings phase of my life. When I came back to Austin, I was ready for the wide open spaces. I was sick of the 405, the 210, the dense population. And sure, Austin isn't anything like LA yet, but even in the year I was gone, when I came back, I noticed it was backing up already, and so it really is growing. And as it grows, that means a lot of good things for a lot of people. But the more people that move here, the more jobs that are created, the more neighborhoods that are built, the more land that's being developed, the more traffic. So keep that in mind. Okay, so moving on that note, let's talk about the growth. And depending on who you are, what your lifestyle is, that can either be a pro or a con. Austin is absolutely booming. Adobe is here, Amazon is here, Apple is here, Facebook is here, Oracle is here, Tesla's moving here, Elon just got a place down on Lake Travis. So much of Silicon Valley is going from California to Austin, much like a lot of people residential are going from California to Austin. They're even naming parts of central Austin Silicon Hills because of all of these companies that are coming here. So it's an opportunity for good paying jobs. That is why a lot of people come here. But as I'm sure you can guess, costs of things increase, traffic increases, and you know, that's why we're seeing a lot of people move a little bit north of central Austin, the suburbs, certain areas with great schools and neighborhoods, because you're close enough to the city if you want that lifestyle, but you're not stuck in the mess of it. So if you're someone who likes that tech stuff, if you like the booming economy, 5,000 new jobs for Tesla, that's great, you know, but if it's not really your thing and you want more of a peaceful, tranquil life, you want to go more north. Which leads me to my next point, which is absolutely a pro, the affordability. People move here from all over all the time because there are good paying jobs and they can buy twice as much house for the same price they're paying wherever they came from. You could be someone living in Oregon and you have a 1,500 square foot townhome and you sell it for $400,000. Well, in Austin, specifically northern Austin, $400,000 can buy you a 3,000 square foot house with a pool, near a golf course, by the best schools. And so we're seeing a lot of people doing that. And in addition, a lot of people who have that extra money to invest in something, they'll buy a property, fix it up, turn it into an Airbnb, and with all the tourism that Austin gets due to the festivals and whatnot, they make good money doing that stuff. But there is a catch. Property tax. Yes, people talk about it all the time. No state income tax. You know, you're used to putting away 10 to 12% of your income to pay the tax man on top of your usual 20%. You'll be delighted when you move here because, yeah, no state income tax. In many places, it's as low as 1%. Here, you see it in 2s and 3s. You might have a normal house that's nothing too fancy, but you're paying $6,000 to $7,000 a year in property taxes. So it's a bit of a trade-off, and you just kind of have to see what's right for you. Now, am I saying it's absolutely cheap to live here? No. Over the years, things have gotten more expensive here, as you know, with much of the country, but you know, a house that you might have bought in 2005 for the mid 200s has appreciated. Now you can sell it in the mid 3s. So, you know, if you're looking at San Antonio, that's much cheaper than Austin, Texas. Houston, Texas might be comparable, but Austin, yes, it's more affordable compared to the states where it's crazy expensive like New York City. But yes, in its own respect, Austin can be expensive. So if you're someone who neither wants, you know, the mess of living in a metropolitan area and you want something more affordable, well, you're in luck if you move up more north. You're gonna find newer homes, cheaper homes, and they're just always building. It just keeps going north, north, north. So is it affordable? Yes, compared to certain states you might be coming from. Is it necessarily cheap? It's debatable, and we're going to be making a video about the cost of living in Austin, so stay tuned for that. I'm not really trying to dissuade you from coming here, but you know, we help so many people move and relocate here and find the right areas and their dream homes, but you know, we're going to be honest about it too, because you need that honesty when you're moving to a new place. I'm not trying to be some slick Rick, hey, Austin, Texas, everything's perfect, here's everything I love, you know, sunshine and rainbows. You know, when you're going somewhere new and it's a big decision for you and your family, you need to know what to expect and what the ugly side of things are. So yeah, I'll be honest about what I do like about it, and I'll be honest about what's not so favorable. And of course, so much of it is subjective, and I'm speaking just on behalf of my own experience, but hopefully, you know, you might understand where I'm coming from. You might be able to relate to the information I'm giving you. If we are providing value for you in this video, be sure to tap the like button. You know, it really helps us grow as a channel and enables us to really make more content for you guys. Be sure to comment down below if you have any questions, comments, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you have a video idea, something you want us to cover and learn about. Or, you know, if you're local and you're an Austinite, a fellow Austinite watching this video, and you're thinking, I'm the devil for bringing all these people over here. Well, you know, it's happened. It's already happened. You know, for the longest time, myself included, we were pushing back. It was like an inside joke amongst Austinites. You know, stop moving here. Why is everyone moving here? But, you know, the years have passed. They already came. The companies came. The population's growing. It's happened. You know, it's best to just accept it. And, you know, if you want to rip me to shreds in the comments, absolutely. But, you know, I figure, why not help people? Why not, if they're coming here anyway, why not be of service? So, all right, moving on. So another thing that I consider a con, or many people also consider a pro, depending on who you are, is how big Texas is. It's true, everything here is bigger. Everything is spaced apart. If you're not gonna be living in the downtown metro area and you're gonna be more up north or in a more suburban area, you're gonna need a car. You know, public transportation honestly leaves a bit much to be desired here. In recent years, they built the Metro Rail, which takes you from North Austin down to the downtown. I remember when the Metro Rail was announced and it was being built, and I was much younger at the time and I was excited. So I went to my mom and said, hey, did you hear they're building the Metro Rail? That's gonna be so cool. We're innovative, we're having all this transportation. And she grew up in San Francisco and she lived a long time in Houston, and she was just like, great, you know, that's, wow. So it is helpful, but if you're used to being in a city where you have an amazing public transportation system, you might be a little bit underwhelmed when you live here, especially with how big it is and how long it takes to get from point A to point B. And the thing about Austin is that it's very centrally located. So if you want to go to Dallas, if you want to go to Houston, if you want to go to San Antonio, that's what Texans do when they want to go on vacation. They vacation to other cities in Texas, because if you're from the Northeast per se and you're in Rhode Island and you want to go to Boston, that's not too far of a drive. If you want to go to New York, it's not too far of a drive. But if you're in Austin, you know, and you want to go somewhere, well, you have Dallas, that's about 4 hours. Houston's about 3 hours. San Antonio's about an hour and a half to 2 hours. You know, if you really want a longer road trip, you could go east towards New Orleans, and that's gonna maybe take you maybe a full day of driving. I remember I made the drive to LA a few times, and just to get out of Texas going west into New Mexico, that was day one of my driving. I was 9 hours behind the wheel from Austin. I ended in Las Cruces at nighttime. Another thing is, if you're used to being near a coast, having beaches nearby, the closest beach from Austin is Galveston Beach, which is in the Houston area, which is, again, 3 or 4 hours. And if you're used to really nice beaches, you know, Galveston's a little murky. It's a little, it's not the Pacific Ocean, I'll just say that. Other beaches would be South Padre Island, Corpus Christi, but those can be 6 hours, 9 hours of driving. So that's something to keep in mind. You know, if you like that beach lifestyle and you're coming to Austin, you're in the center of the largest state in the country. So I personally consider it a bit of a con. But at the same time, you know, if you're coming from a place where it's clustered and dense, yeah, it's amazing to have, you know, a grocery store within walking distance of where you live, but it's also very congested. It's also everything is so smushed together. Here, it's more open, it's less dense, you know, the energy here is calmer, you know what I mean? And the grocery stores are humongous. Instead of growing up, they're this way. So it's like a warehouse when you go shopping for your milk and your OJ. You know, when I lived in Los Angeles, it was amazing for a multitude of reasons, but I felt the energy there to be very, like those old TVs with the tube in the back and you turn it on and it's just static. That's how it felt to live there. And to be back in Austin, to be here, it's a certain calmness, it's a certain warmness, and I think it comes just from everything being kind of slowed down and spread out. One of the benefits for it being so spread out, though, is that you see newer things here. Right? Newer development, new stores, new neighborhoods. You know, an old house in Austin, or Cedar Park rather, or Leander, one of these suburbs, is 20 years old. That's old here. Whereas if you're living up in the Northeast, for example, which is rich in history, you know, old there is a century. So it's just a different type of vibe here. On that note though, another pro, the culture. People here are different. People here, and I'm speaking generally because you have your meanies everywhere you go, but here people tend to be nicer. They tend to be more kind. If you're outside, someone will strike up a conversation with you. A lot of the people who tend to just keep to themselves, like, hey, leave me alone, turns out they're from places like New York. They're from places like Washington or Oregon, where you're not used to such warm, friendly culture here, where you're invited to barbecues, you're invited to do things with absolute strangers. And to me, the biggest difference are the drivers. You know, here, yeah, you have your jerks on the road, but people let you in, right? You know, if you need to change lanes, someone will brake and signal you, you come along, you salute them, you wave, they smile, they nod. If they have a hat on, they tip the hat. It's just a different vibe, you know? I remember being in other states driving around, and it's like, I got the sense that they just pass anyone. They just give anyone a license, and there's no courtesy, it's just every man for himself. They cut you off all the time. It's very tense to drive in other places, whereas here, you know, speed limits, 85 sometimes, 75 is pretty common, 60 to 65, you know, that's slow for a lot of people. But yeah, you get kinder drivers, you get kinder people. Not to say people in other places are mean, but here there's just such a warmth with people. You know, people genuinely take an interest and they're kinder. And here, you know, it's, you breathe, right? It's people wave, you know, families. So that's just something to keep in mind. You know, if you're thinking of coming here from a place, consider the culture change. You know, you might be someone who wants to keep to themselves, who is a little bit more quiet, or is used to an entire life of being a little more closed off to the strangers. You don't know, you know, who's approaching you, or if you're at a gas station and you're used to people wiping your windshield and asking for money, you know, you don't see that stuff here. Which is, I think, what enables people to just be a little bit more down to earth and grounded and warm. You know, Texas is a friendly place to be. You know, it gets a bad rap sometimes, but it's, you know, It's certainly home. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna talk about can also be a pro or a con, depending on who you are and what your lifestyle is. And if you saw my thumbnail, we're talking about it, cannabis. In the state of Texas, cannabis is illegal. And I'm not just talking to the people who do it recreationally out there, but if you are from a state that has it legalized recreationally or medicinally and you're used to using it to either help you sleep or if you use it for other medical reasons, like my oldest brother, he's special needs, he's autistic, he's epileptic, he's had horrific seizures in the past, and so we've got him on a pharmaceutical, and it helps with the seizures, yes, but it damages the bones, it has side effects, it's not great for the body, and we would love it if we had medicinal marijuana to use to treat the seizures. We've seen people in Colorado with their kids who have these grand mal seizures, and you know, doses of droplets under the tongue with THC calm them down, you know, but here it's not quite like that. You know, Texas is still catching up to that, to what you're seeing across the country as it becomes legalized. So if that's something that you rely on or you use, or even if you're someone who likes to do it for fun, you know, beware, it's not easy to come by here. Just a little side tangent, you know, politically speaking, Texas has always been known as a red state, and then Austin is the blue dot within the red state, right? The sea of red. But, you know, things are changing. You know, in the most recent election, Texas almost flipped to blue. So that's something to keep in mind wherever you are on the fence. You know, I find that the more downtown you go, obviously any city, you know, in any state is going to be more liberal. If you're more in the suburban area, more North Austin, you find it mixed. You know, you can walk through a neighborhood and one house will have a sign that says Trump and Pence, another house will have a sign that says Biden Harris. But then, you know, you might find yourself wandering into Georgetown, which is about 40 minutes north of downtown. And as soon as you're entering Georgetown, bam, big billboard, Trump, Pence, make America great again. So I'm not here to condemn or say who's right or wrong, but that's something to think about if you're moving here, and it ties to what I was talking about passing certain laws to legalize certain things. And lastly, you know, pros, things to do. We have a great nightlife here. You know, 6th Street is very popular. We also have Rainy Street, it's more hip and trendy, a little pretentious. On 6th Street, they close it down on the weekends. Cops are around, you know, navigating, making sure that there's no mayhem, right? But you have your food trucks. You have a dude in underwear carrying a snake. You have people stumbling in and out of bars. It has the reputation for being a little trashy, but fun, you know what I mean? And people of all ages. It's not just people who are just turning 21, but you see, you know, older couples, they're middle-aged couples, even some seniors, you know, it's diverse and it's eclectic and it's a good time. If you're wanting something a little more chic, a little more upscale, a little more contemporary, you know, we have the Domain. It's an outdoor shopping center built in the last 5 or 10 years, and they just added a section called Rock Rose, which is a street of bars, there's hookah lounges, there's clubs, it's fun, you see nicer cars there, and you know, it's not exclusive, it's not like you have to be a high member or fancy member of society, it's just a different flavor of nightlife. In addition to the nightlife, you have your outdoorsy stuff. That's what Austin is known for, outdoorsy activities. You've got your swimming, Barton Creek, you've got cliff jumping, you've got hiking trails, you've got cycling. Austin is the home of Lance Armstrong. Cycling became such a trend here in recent years. You know, bike lanes everywhere you look. Cars have bike racks everywhere you look. It's just part of it. You know, it's a great culture of fitness. The more south you go, you find healthier foods, you know, independent food chains and breweries and things like that to do. The more north you get, you find the chains, you know, you find your Applebee's, you find those types of places, but lots of things to do, very health conscious. If you're vegan, if you're vegetarian, if you're into yoga, you know, Austin's very progressive the more further south you go. So there's no shortage of that stuff for people to find. And near that Domain area, near that central Austin area, we also have Topgolf. We have the hill country, a little bit outskirts of downtown. It can be quite beautiful here, you know, once you leave the city. But that's the thing, you know, in my personal opinion, it's not genuinely beautiful. You know, people do like the nature here. There are some pretty spots, but if you're coming from a place that has a beach, if you're coming from a place that has mountains, tall trees, bodies of water. Yeah, we have some lakes here and they're gorgeous, don't get me wrong. Lake Travis is fabulous, but you know, if you're coming from a place that's truly visually stunning, Washington State, Montana, California, Florida, you're not gonna find that type of scenery here. You'll find scenery, you know, it's a lot of green, a lot of trees, hills and things like that, but you know, something to keep in mind, you're not going to be wowed by the nature. It's Texas. Much of it's flat, much of it used to be farmland, ranch, and then they built into that. So just something to keep in mind. But whatever your interests are, whether you're a family person, whether you're a younger person, whether you're on the older side, there are things that will fit your interests. There are things that match what you're into. Austin is not exclusively for young people. It's not exclusively for families, you know, and there's areas that are better suited for different demographics. So whether you want a downtown condo or you want acres on land or you want a nice suburban home near award-winning school districts, whatever it is in Austin, Texas, you know, we've got your back. That's what we'd love to do. But the only way for us to figure out your lifestyle, what you need, you gotta reach out. Shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call. Days, nights, weekends, whenever. Yeah, it's what we do. We help people, we have fun, and we get it done. So I hope this video has provided some value to you. It's been helpful to you. If you have any questions, again, just comment down below or contact us if you need us. And until the next video, we'll catch you later.